Admiral Kang Woo-jin stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Command Station, watching the stars through the massive window. At 52 years old, he had spent his entire life preparing for a war that might never come. Now it was here and Earth was not ready. The message had arrived 3 days ago. It came from somewhere beyond the edge of the solar system. Broadcast on every frequency humans could detect. The voice was cold and mechanical, speaking perfect English through some kind of translation device. People of the third planet, I am High Admiral Thexmore of the Vorthak Empire. Your world has been marked for conquest. You have 30 days to surrender all military forces and accept imperial rule. Resist and your species will be eliminated. Woo-jin had listened to that message dozens of times. Each time it made him angrier. The aliens spoke like humans were insects, barely worth their attention. They had no idea what they were dealing with. Sir, the fleet commanders are here for the meeting, said Commander Yoon Nari, his second in command. She was young, only 31, but one of the smartest tactical minds he had ever worked with. Her short black hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her dark eyes showed no fear. That was good. They would need courage for what was coming. The meeting room filled with Earth's top military leaders. Fleet Admiral Chen from the Pacific Defense Force, General Martinez from the American Space Command, Admiral Petrov from the Russian Deep Space Navy, 12 others from around the world. They all looked worried. How many ships do we have? Woo-jin asked. 212 combat vessels, Admiral Chen replied. Most are frigates and destroyers. We have 18 battleships and 4 carriers. And how many are they bringing? Commander Yoon Nari pulled up the sensor data on the main screen. Our deep space monitors detected their fleet 2 hours ago. 15,000 ships, sir. Maybe more. The room went quiet. 15,000 against 200. It was hopeless. There is something else, said a new voice from the doorway. Dr. Lee So-min walked in, carrying a data pad. She was 45, with gray streaks in her long hair and tired eyes behind thick glasses. She had been working on secret projects for the military for 5 years. Dr. Lee, Woo-jin said, please tell us you have good news. She sat down at the table and looked around at all the worried faces. I have been working on something. Project Prometheus, 1 ship, but it is different from anything we have ever built. 1 ship? General Martinez laughed, but it was not a happy sound. We need 1,000 ships, not 1. Dr. Lee So-min opened her datapad and projected images into the air above the table. It showed a battleship, but not like any they had seen before. It was long and narrow, covered in strange armor plating. Huge guns stuck out from its sides. This is the Indomitable, she said. We have been building it in secret near Jupiter. It uses new technology, new weapons, new ways of thinking about space combat. Admiral Chen studied the image. It looks primitive. Those appear to be kinetic weapons. Railguns? Yes, Dr. Lee So-min nodded. While the rest of the galaxy has focused on energy weapons and shields, we took a different path. We perfected the art of throwing rocks very, very fast. Rocks? Admiral Petrov sounded confused. Tungsten rods. Titanium spears, moving at 15% of light speed. When something that heavy hits something that fast, it does not matter what kind of shield you have. Physics wins. Woo-jin leaned forward. This was interesting. Tell us more. Dr. Lee So-min smiled for the first time since entering the room. Every alien species we have studied uses the same basic technology. Energy shields to stop plasma weapons. Plasma weapons to break energy shields. They have been fighting the same way for thousands of years, but they have forgotten something basic, which is Newton's laws of motion. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. A tungsten rod weighing 10 kilograms and moving at 45,000 kilometers per second carries more destructive force than most nuclear weapons, and their shields cannot stop it because it is solid matter, not energy. The room was quiet again, but this time it felt different. There was hope. How long do we have? Commander Yoon Nari asked. The Vorthak fleet will arrive in 27 days, Dr. Lee So-min replied. The Indomitable can be ready in 25. And crew? 847 people. The best we have. I already have someone in mind for captain. She pulled up another file. The image showed a young man in a military uniform. He had sharp features and intelligent eyes. Captain Park Jin-ho, age 29. Top of his class at the Space Naval Academy. He has been training on combat simulators for 2 years. His tactical scores are the highest we have ever recorded. Woo-jin studied the young man's face. He looks very young to command humanity's last hope. Age does not matter, Dr. Lee So-min said. He thinks differently. He sees patterns others miss. He understands that space combat is not about honor or tradition. It is about physics and mathematics. And he is very good at both. Admiral Chen was still looking at the ship design. This is a huge risk. We are betting everything on one untested ship with an untested captain. No, Wu Jin said quietly. We are betting everything on human ingenuity, on our ability to find new solutions to old problems. The Vorthak Empire has conquered the galaxy by being bigger and stronger, but they have never faced an enemy that was smarter. He stood up and looked around the room. We have 27 days to prepare. I want our conventional fleet ready for battle, but their job is not to win. Their job is to buy time for the Indomitable to reach the combat zone. And if this does not work? General Martinez asked. Wu Jin walked to the window and looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, 15,000 enemy ships were coming to destroy his world, but for the first time in 3 days he was not afraid. Then we die fighting, he said. But we make them remember that humanity does not surrender, ever. Commander Yoon Nari stepped up beside him. The galaxy has no idea what they are about to face. Wu Jin nodded. The Vorthak Empire had ruled for 3,000 years. They thought they knew everything about warfare. They were about to learn that humans had some new ideas about that subject. The war was coming. Earth was ready. Captain Park Jin-ho floated in zero gravity, watching the Indomitable take shape outside his transport ship. Even unfinished, it was beautiful in a deadly way. The ship was 2 kilometers long and looked nothing like the curved, elegant vessels other species built. This was pure human engineering, straight lines, heavy armor, and weapons that meant business. First time seeing her? Asked Dr. Lee So-min, floating beside him. She had insisted on bringing him to the construction site herself. Yes, ma'am, Jin-ho replied. She is not what I expected. What did you expect? Jin-ho thought for a moment. Something that looked more like our other battleships. This looks like a giant metal arrow designed to punch holes in things. Dr. Lee So-min laughed. That is exactly what it is. Come on, let me show you around. They docked with the ship and entered through an airlock. The inside was just as different as the outside. Instead of wide corridors and comfortable crew quarters, everything was tight and efficient. Every surface was covered with armor plating. Even the walls could stop enemy fire. We built this ship with one goal, Dr. Lee So-min explained as they walked. To destroy as many enemy ships as possible before they destroy us. Everything else was secondary. They passed through the crew quarters. Jin-ho noticed that each room was small but well-designed. The beds could fold into the walls to create workspace. The walls themselves were lined with shock-absorbing materials. If we get hit, the crew will feel it, Dr. Lee So-min said. But they will survive. We learned from every ship battle in human history. Our ancestors fought on wooden ships with cannons, then steel ships with missiles. Now we fight in space, but the lessons are the same. They entered the bridge. It was smaller than Jin-ho expected, but every station was perfectly placed. The captain's chair sat in the center, surrounded by tactical displays and communication panels. Sit down, Dr. Lee So-min said. Jin-ho took the captain's chair. Immediately, displays lit up around him. He could see every part of the ship, every system, every weapon. It was like the entire vessel was an extension of his body. This is Area, Dr. Lee So-min said. Advanced Reconnaissance and Intelligence Assistant. She is not just a computer. She learns. She adapts. She will help you make decisions faster than any human could alone. A pleasant female voice spoke from the speakers. Hello, Captain Park. I have been studying your tactical training records. I look forward to working with you. Jin-ho was impressed. The AI sounded almost human. Can she predict enemy movements? Better than that. She can calculate probable outcomes for any tactical decision in real time, but she will never replace human judgment. The final choices are always yours, they continued the tour. The weapons deck was enormous. 12 railgun systems lined each side of the ship. Each one was 50 meters long and could launch projectiles at incredible speeds. How fast? Jin-ho asked. 45,000 kilometers per second at standard charge. We can push it to 50,000 for short periods, but that risks damaging the system. Jin-ho did the math in his head. A tungsten rod moving at that speed would hit with the force of a nuclear bomb, and we have 24 of these. Plus torpedo tubes, point defense systems, and something special I will show you later. They walked through the engine room. The fusion reactors were twice as large as anything on other human ships. The engineer on duty, Chief Kim Tae-ho, looked up from his controls. "Dr. Lee," he said with a nod. "Captain Park, welcome aboard. She is a beautiful ship, but she drinks power like a thirsty elephant." "How much power?" Jin-ho asked. "At full combat load, we generate more electricity than most small cities use. The railguns need enormous amounts of energy, but we can sustain full combat operations for 6 hours before we need to recharge." Dr. Lee So-min led them to the final stop on the tour. A sealed section near the front of the ship. "This is classified," she said, entering a security code. "Only 12 people in the fleet know about this." The door opened to reveal a single massive weapon system. It was larger than the railguns, with complex targeting equipment and what looked like a small fusion reactor dedicated just to powering it. "We call it Newton's Fury," Dr. Lee So-min said with pride. "It can launch a 1-ton tungsten penetrator at 18% of light speed. We only have enough power for 3 shots, and it takes 10 minutes to recharge between shots. But each shot can destroy multiple enemy ships in a straight line." Jin-ho stared at the weapon. He had studied physics at the academy, and he could imagine what that much mass moving that fast could do. "This could punch through a moon. We tested it on an asteroid. It went clean through and kept going. The projectile is probably still flying somewhere in deep space." They returned to the bridge. Jin-ho sat in the captain's chair again and studied the tactical displays. Arya showed him simulations of possible battles running through hundreds of scenarios per second. "Doctor," he said quietly, "do you really think one ship can make a difference?" Dr. Lee So-min was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled up a historical file on the main display. It showed ancient Earth ships, wooden vessels with cloth sails. 500 years ago, human naval battles were fought by ships of the line. Big wooden ships that would sail up next to each other and blast away with cannons. It was all about who had the most ships and the biggest guns. The display changed to show a smaller, faster ship attacking a larger one. Then humans invented new tactics. Fast ships that could strike and run, submarines that attacked from below, aircraft that attacked from above. Each time we changed the rules of warfare. She looked at Jin-ho directly. "The Vorthak Empire fights the way everyone in the galaxy fights. Big fleets. Energy weapons, shields, honor and tradition. They have never faced an enemy that thinks like humans think." "And how do humans think?" Dr. Lee So-min smiled. "We cheat. We use physics as a weapon. We turn our enemy's strengths against them. We refuse to fight fair when our survival is at stake." Arya's voice interrupted them. "Captain, I have completed analysis of available data on Vorthak fleet tactics. They favor direct assault formations with overlapping shield coverage. They have never faced kinetic weapons at these velocities." Jin-ho studied the tactical data. The alien ships were impressive. Huge vessels with powerful energy weapons and strong shields. But they were designed to fight other ships just like themselves. "They expect us to play by their rules," he said. "Exactly." Dr. Lee So-min nodded. "They think space combat is about honor and tradition. We know it is about mathematics and violence." Chief Kim Tae-ho's voice came over the intercom. "Dr. Captain, the final systems are coming online. We will be ready for space trials in 18 hours. Dr. Lee So-min looked out at the construction crews putting the finishing touches on humanity's secret weapon. 18 hours to test systems that took 5 years to develop. Then we go to war against an empire that has never lost a battle. Jin-ho felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders. 847 people would trust him with their lives. The survival of humanity might depend on the decisions he made in the next few weeks. But as he looked at the displays showing the Indomitable's capabilities, he felt something he had not expected. Confidence. The aliens had bigger fleets and more experience. But humans had built something new. Something dangerous. Something that would shock the galaxy. "Area," he said. "Begin combat simulations. I want to know everything about how this ship fights." "Yes, Captain." Initiating tactical analysis protocols. The bridge displays lit up with data as the ship's AI began teaching its new captain how to wage war in ways the galaxy had never seen. High Admiral Thexmore looked at the sensor readings and felt amused. The humans had assembled their entire fleet at the edge of their system, 212 primitive vessels arranged in what they probably thought was an impressive battle formation. "Pathetic," said his second-in-command, Fleet Commander Veltar. "Their largest ships are smaller than our escorts. This will not even be good practice for our crews." Thexmore agreed. In 3,000 years of conquest, the Vorthak Empire had destroyed thousands of species. Most surrendered when they saw the size of an Imperial fleet. A few tried to fight with energy weapons and shields like civilized beings. These humans appeared to be using kinetic weapons, metal projectiles fired by magnetic acceleration. It was technology the Empire had abandoned 15 centuries ago. Signal the fleet, Thexmore ordered. Begin standard assault formation. I want this finished quickly so we can move on to more important systems. The Vorthak fleet spread out across space like a metal storm cloud. 15,000 ships from massive dreadnoughts 3 kilometers long to swift destroyers designed for pursuit and elimination. Each ship was a masterpiece of Imperial engineering, covered in energy shields and armed with plasma weapons that could melt through any armor. Admiral Kang Woo-jin watched the alien fleet approach on his tactical display. Even knowing it was coming, the size was overwhelming. Each enemy dreadnought was larger than Earth's biggest battleship. Their formation was perfect with overlapping shield coverage and clear lines of fire. All ships, he broadcast on the fleet channel, remember your orders. We are not here to win this battle. We are here to buy time and gather intelligence. Make them remember that humans do not die quietly. The first human ships opened fire at maximum range. Railgun projectiles and missiles streaked across space toward the approaching alien fleet. Most were stopped by energy shields or shot down by point defense systems. A few got through and damaged alien hulls, but it was like throwing pebbles at a tank. The Vorthak returned fire. Bright beams of plasma energy lanced out from their weapons, striking human ships with devastating effect. The destroyer Seoul exploded in a ball of superheated gas. The frigate Mumbai tried to dodge but was cut in half by a plasma beam from an enemy cruiser. Sir, Commander Yoon Nari reported, we have lost 23 ships in the first exchange. Enemy losses are 0. Woo-jin nodded grimly. This was expected. The conventional fleet's job was not to damage the enemy, but to observe their tactics and capabilities. Every second of sensor data was being transmitted back to the Indomitable, hidden behind Jupiter's moon system. On the alien flagship, High Admiral Thexmore was getting bored. The human ships were firing their primitive kinetic weapons as fast as they could load them, but Imperial shields were designed to stop much more dangerous attacks. A few lucky hits had caused minor hull damage, but nothing significant. How long until complete victory? He asked. At current rate of destruction, approximately 47 minutes, Fleet Commander Veltar replied. The humans are fighting bravely, but they are completely outmatched. That was when something appeared on the sensors that made Thexmore pause. A new contact emerging from behind Jupiter's largest moon. It was moving fast, much faster than any human ship they had seen so far. Analysis, he demanded. Single vessel, approximately 2 kilometers in length. Design configuration unknown. It appears to be accelerating directly toward our formation. Thexmore studied the sensor data. One ship charging alone toward 15,000 enemies. It was either incredible bravery or incredible stupidity, probably stupidity. Captain Park Jin-ho felt the Indomitable shake as her engines pushed her toward maximum velocity. Around him, the bridge crew worked at their stations with calm efficiency. Chief Kim Tae-ho's voice came over the intercom from the engine room. All systems nominal, Captain. Railguns charged and ready. Newton's Fury is online. Aria Tactical Analysis, Jin-ho said. Enemy fleet is maintaining standard formation with overlapping shield coverage, the AI replied. Recommend target designation Alpha 77. Enemy cruiser cluster with minimal point defense coverage. Jin-ho studied the tactical display. The alien ships were arranged in a perfect formation, each one supporting the others. It was textbook fleet tactics designed to maximize firepower while minimizing vulnerability. It was also exactly what Dr. Lee So-min had predicted they would do. All hands, prepare for combat acceleration, Jin-ho announced. We are about to show the galaxy something new. He triggered the weapons systems. 24 railguns swiveled toward their targets. Each one loaded a tungsten penetrator rod weighing 10 kilograms. The targeting computers calculated trajectories, accounting for the movement of both the Indomitable and her targets. Fire, Jin-ho ordered. 24 tungsten rods shot out from the Indomitable at 45,000 kilometers per second. They were invisible to the naked eye, traveling too fast for human vision to track, but their effects were immediately visible. The first rod hit a Vorthak cruiser dead center. Instead of bouncing off the energy shield like every other human weapon had done, it punched straight through. The tungsten penetrator continued through the ship's hull, through its engine compartment and out the other side. The cruiser exploded in a cascade of secondary detonations. The second rod hit another cruiser. And another. Each tungsten penetrator passed through its target and continued in a straight line, hitting whatever was behind it. In the space of 3 seconds, 12 Vorthak ships were destroyed or critically damaged. On the alien flagship, alarms were screaming. High Admiral Thexmore stared at his tactical display in shock. 12 ships gone, just like that. What happened? He demanded. How did their weapons penetrate our shields? Unknown, sir, Fleet Commander Veltar replied, his voice shaking. The projectiles appear to be simple kinetic weapons, but they are moving at velocities we have never encountered. Our shields are not designed to stop solid matter at those speeds. The human ship was already firing again. Another salvo of tungsten rods streaked across space. 8 more Vorthak vessels died, their hulls pierced by projectiles moving at a significant fraction of light speed. Jinho watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Just as Dr. Lee Soman had predicted, the alien shields were useless against kinetic weapons at these velocities. Physics did not care about Imperial technology. Area, calculate optimal firing pattern for maximum damage, he ordered. Trajectory analysis complete, Captain. Recommend firing sequence Gamma 4, targeting enemy formation weak points to maximize secondary damage from debris. The Indomitable fired again. This time, Jinho aimed for the center of enemy formations where the ships were packed most tightly. Tungsten rods punched through cruisers and destroyers, creating expanding clouds of debris that damaged nearby vessels. High Admiral Thexmore realized he was watching something unprecedented. In 3,000 years of conquest, no enemy had ever developed weapons like this. The humans were not just using kinetic energy, they were using it as a precision instrument of destruction. All ships, scatter formation, he ordered. Do not maintain close proximity to other vessels. But changing formation took time. The Vorthak fleet began to spread out, but they were still arranged in neat lines and organized groups. Perfect targets for weapons that could punch through multiple ships in a row. Jinho saw the enemy formation beginning to change and smiled. Too late, he said quietly. Arya, prepare Newton's Fury. Newton's Fury charged and ready, Captain. Target recommendation. Enemy dreadnought formation at bearing 270. Jinho looked at the tactical display. 7 Vorthak dreadnoughts were arranged in a line, their massive hulls bristling with weapons. Each one was 3 times the size of the Indomitable, protected by the most powerful shields in the galaxy. Fire Newton's Fury, Jinho ordered. The massive weapon discharged with a sound that could be felt through the ship's hull. A 1-ton tungsten penetrator shot out at 18% of light speed. It hit the first dreadnought and passed through it like it was made of paper. Then the second dreadnought. Then the third. The tungsten projectile punched through all 7 ships in a perfect line, each one exploding in a chain of secondary detonations. In the space of 5 seconds, the Vorthak Empire lost more firepower than some species possessed in their entire fleets. High Admiral Thexmore watched in horror as his most powerful ships were destroyed by a single shot from a single human vessel. The impossible was happening. His fleet was being defeated by one enemy ship using weapons that should not have been able to penetrate Imperial defenses. Sir, Fleet Commander Veltar reported, his voice barely above a whisper. We have lost 237 ships. The humans have lost 1. Thexmore looked at his tactical display. His perfect formation was in ruins. Ships were scattered across space trying to avoid the deadly lines of fire from the human vessel. For the first time in his career, he was afraid. What kind of species are we fighting? He asked quietly. The answer came in the form of another salvo of tungsten rods, punching through 6 more Vorthak ships with casual precision. The humans were not just winning. They were teaching the galaxy a new way to wage war. The battle had been going on for 3 hours, and High Admiral Thexmore was learning to fear humans in ways he had never imagined. What started as an easy conquest had turned into a nightmare of precise destruction and tactical innovation. Captain Park Jinho was not fighting like any enemy the Vorthak had ever faced. While Imperial doctrine called for honorable ship-to-ship combat with organized formations, the human captain turned space itself into a weapon. Arya, calculate gravity assist trajectory using Jupiter's moon system, Jinho ordered. Trajectory computed, Captain. We can use Io's gravity well to increase velocity by 12%, while changing course to attack vector theta 9. Jinho smiled. The alien fleet was trying to surround the Indomitable, but they thought in terms of straight-line movement and predictable maneuvers. Humans had learned to use gravity, momentum, and orbital mechanics as tactical tools. The Indomitable swung around Jupiter's volcanic moon, using its gravity to accelerate and change direction in ways that seemed impossible to the pursuing alien ships. As it came around the moon's far side, Jinho triggered the railguns. 16 tungsten rods shot out at increased velocity, striking a formation of Vorthak destroyers that had been trying to intercept the human ship. The destroyers exploded in sequence, their debris creating an expanding field of metal fragments that damaged nearby cruisers. "Sir," Commander Yunari reported from her tactical station, "enemy casualties now exceed 800 ships. They are attempting to establish new formation parameters, but their commanders appear to be having difficulty adapting." Jinho nodded. That was the problem with fighting the same way for 3,000 years. It made you predictable. The Vorthak had conquered the galaxy using superior numbers and standardized tactics. They had never faced an enemy that refused to follow the rules. On the alien flagship, High Admiral Thexmore was receiving reports that made no sense. The human ship was not just destroying his vessels, it was using their own formations against them, turning debris into projectiles, and somehow predicting where his ships would be before they got there. "Fleet Commander Veltar," he said, "how is one ship defeating our entire fleet?" Veltar studied the tactical data with growing confusion. "Sir, they appear to be using weapons we have never encountered, tactics that violate standard combat doctrine, and some kind of predictive system that anticipates our movements." "Predictive system?" "Yes, sir. Their weapons fire appears to be aimed not at where our ships are, but where they will be several seconds in the future. It is as if they can see through time." Thexmore did not believe in magic, but he was running out of rational explanations. He decided to try something desperate. "Signal boarding parties. Prepare assault shuttles. If we cannot destroy their ship, we will capture it." 50 Vorthak assault shuttles launched from the fleet, each carrying 20 elite Imperial Marines. They were equipped with the best armor and weapons the Empire could provide, trained to fight in the confined spaces of enemy ships. Captain Jinho watched the approaching shuttles on his tactical display. "Aria, analysis of boarding threat. 50 craft approaching with hostile intent," the AI replied. "Recommend point defense activation." "Negative. Let them come." "Commander Yunari, signal the Marine detachment. Tell them we have visitors coming." The boarding shuttles attached to the Indomitable's hull and began cutting through the armor plating. Inside the ship, 200 human Marines took positions in the corridors, armed with weapons designed for shipboard combat. The first Vorthak Marines broke through the hull and found themselves in a nightmare. The human ship was not laid out like Imperial vessels, with wide corridors and clear sight lines. Instead, it was a maze of narrow passages, emergency bulkheads, and defensive positions. Worse, the human Marines fought like nothing the aliens had ever encountered. While Vorthak combat doctrine emphasized honor and direct assault, the humans used every dirty trick they could think of. They set traps, used the ship's systems against the invaders, and showed no interest in fighting fairly. Marine Sergeant Kim Soo-jin crouched behind a bulkhead, listening to the alien soldiers advancing down the corridor. She had fought in training exercises for years, but this was her first real combat. The aliens were bigger and stronger than humans, with better armor and weapons, but they moved in predictable formations and they seemed confused by the ship's layout. She triggered a control panel, and the corridor lights went out. In the darkness, she heard the aliens talking in their harsh language, probably trying to coordinate. That was when she activated the trap. Explosive charges hidden in the walls detonated simultaneously, filling the corridor with deadly fragments. The aliens' energy shields protected them from direct energy weapons, but they did little against high-velocity metal pieces moving in all directions. Throughout the ship, similar scenes played out. Human Marines used every advantage they could find: knowledge of the ship's systems, creative use of tools and equipment, and a complete willingness to cheat in any way possible. The Vorthak Marines had trained to fight enemies who followed the same basic rules of combat they used. The humans followed no rules at all. On the bridge, Jin-Ho continued to coordinate the space battle while his crew fought for their lives in the corridors below. The boarding action was actually helping him. The alien shuttles attached to his hull were perfect targets for his point defense weapons, and their destruction damaged nearby enemy ships. Area. How long until Newton's Fury is recharged? 6 minutes and 37 seconds, Captain. Jin-Ho looked at the tactical display. The Vorthak fleet had spread out to avoid his line-of-sight weapons, but they were still trying to maintain some kind of formation. That gave him an idea. Arya, calculate trajectory for asteroid intercept. Bearing 185, range 400,000 kilometers. Captain, there are no asteroids at that location. There will be in 8 minutes. Trust me. Jin-Ho triggered the railguns, but this time he was not aiming at enemy ships. Instead, he fired tungsten rods at empty space, calculating their trajectory to intercept a small asteroid that was orbiting Jupiter. The rods hit the asteroid and shattered it into thousands of pieces, each one now moving at tremendous velocity. 8 minutes later, the expanding cloud of asteroid fragments reached the Vorthak formation. The aliens' shields could stop energy weapons, but they were not designed to handle thousands of high-velocity rock fragments arriving from multiple directions. Dozens of ships suffered hull damage as the improvised shrapnel tore through their defenses. High Admiral Thexmore watched his fleet take damage from flying rocks and realized he was fighting something completely outside his experience. The humans did not just use weapons. They used the entire solar system as a battlefield. Sir, Fleet Commander Veltar reported, our boarding parties report heavy casualties. The human ship appears to be designed as a defensive maze. Our Marines are trapped inside and taking severe losses. And our fleet status? 1,423 ships destroyed or disabled. The human vessel has sustained moderate damage but remains combat effective. Thexmore felt something he had never experienced in 3,000 years of conquest, the possibility of defeat. His fleet was being systematically destroyed by a single enemy ship, using tactics that made no sense according to Imperial doctrine. All ships, he broadcast, converge on the human vessel. Maximum acceleration. If we cannot destroy it with precision, we will overwhelm it with numbers. It was a desperate strategy, abandoning all tactical sophistication in favor of brute force. But desperation was all he had left. Jin-Ho watched the alien fleet converge on his position and smiled. This was exactly what he had been waiting for. The enemy was finally doing something predictable. Arya, prepare final gambit. Plot course for solar intercept. Captain, that trajectory will take us dangerously close to the sun. Exactly. Physics class is about to begin. The Indomitable accelerated toward the inner solar system, with the entire remaining Vorthak fleet in pursuit. Behind them, the wreckage of nearly 1,500 alien ships drifted in space, proof that humans had found a new way to wage war. The final lesson was about to begin. News of the battle had spread across the galaxy through quantum communication networks faster than anyone could have imagined. On 100 worlds, beings who had lived in fear of the Vorthak Empire for thousands of years watched sensor feeds and communication intercepts with growing amazement. The Zenthari Republic, crushed by Imperial forces 50 years ago, monitored the battle from their hidden bases. Chancellor Mordak watched his tactical display with disbelief. How many human ships? He asked his intelligence officer. 1, sir. A single battleship against the entire 3rd Imperial Fleet. And current status? 1,400 Vorthak ships destroyed. The human vessel is still fighting. Mordak had spent decades planning revenge against the Empire that had enslaved his people. He had never imagined that salvation might come from a species no one had ever heard of. Captain Park Jin-Ho guided the Indomitable deeper into the solar system, the remaining Vorthak fleet following close behind. The ship was damaged. Hull breaches on 7 decks, 2 railgun systems offline, and the boarding parties had caused significant internal damage before being eliminated. But she was still fighting. Area, solar approach trajectory confirmed. Yes, Captain. We will reach optimal position in 17 minutes. Warning. This maneuver has never been attempted. Theoretical calculations suggest a 73% probability of success, and the other 27%, complete destruction of our vessel due to solar radiation and gravitational stress. Jin-Ho nodded. Those were acceptable odds when fighting for the survival of humanity. Around him, the bridge crew worked with calm efficiency despite the desperate situation. Chief Kim Tae-ho reported from the engine room. Captain, we are pushing the reactors beyond safe limits. The solar radiation is already affecting our systems. We have maybe 20 minutes before critical failure. Understood, Chief. That should be enough. High Admiral Thexmore was confused by the human captain's tactics. Instead of trying to escape into deep space where he might have a chance of survival, the enemy ship was heading directly toward the system's star. It made no strategic sense. Fleet Commander Veltar, he said, what is their plan? Unknown, sir. Perhaps they intend to destroy their ship rather than allow capture. Some species prefer death to imperial rule. That seemed logical, but Thexmore had learned not to underestimate human tactical thinking. These aliens had surprised him at every turn. He had no reason to think they would stop now. The chase continued for 15 more minutes. The Indomitable led 2,847 Vorthak ships in a long spiral toward the sun, taking damage from enemy weapons but refusing to stop. Several times it seemed the human ship might be destroyed, but it always managed to survive long enough to keep running. Then, at exactly the moment Jinho had calculated, the Indomitable swung around the sun's gravity well. The maneuver was called a gravity assist, and human space crews had been using it for centuries to increase velocity. But no one had ever attempted it this close to a star, and no one had ever used it as a weapon. The sun's immense gravitational field grabbed the Indomitable and accelerated it to incredible velocity. As the ship whipped around the star's surface, its railgun systems fired every tungsten rod in their magazines. The projectiles, already moving at 45,000 kilometers per second, were accelerated by the sun's gravity to 54,000 kilometers per second, 18% of light speed. They shot out from the sun like bullets from the galaxy's largest gun, aimed directly at the pursuing Vorthak fleet. High Admiral Thexmore had 1 second to understand what was happening before the tungsten storm hit his formation. The projectiles, moving at nearly the speed of light, punched through ship after ship in perfect straight lines. Each rod penetrated multiple vessels before its energy was finally absorbed by enough armor and structure to stop it. In the space of 10 seconds, the remaining Vorthak fleet ceased to exist. 2,800 ships, the pride of an empire that had ruled for 3 millennia, were destroyed by a single human vessel using the solar system's own star as a weapon. The Indomitable, her hull glowing from solar radiation, and her systems failing from the tremendous stress of the maneuver, drifted in space among the wreckage of the enemy fleet. On the bridge, Captain Jinho slumped in his chair, exhausted but alive. Damage report, he said quietly. Commander Yoon Nari checked her displays. Hull integrity at 22%. Most systems offline. But we are alive, sir. We won. Area, confirm enemy status. All Vorthak vessels destroyed or disabled, Captain. No active threats detected. Jinho looked at the tactical display showing the debris field that had once been the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. 15,000 ships had entered the solar system. Only one remained operational. Admiral Kang Woo-jin's voice came over the communication system from Earth Defense Command. Captain Park, this is Admiral Kang, status report. Mission accomplished, sir. The Vorthak fleet has been neutralized. We are requesting immediate repair and medical assistance. There was a long pause before Woo-jin replied. Understood, Captain. Rescue ships are on the way. And, Captain? Yes, sir. Well done. The news of humanity's victory spread through the galaxy faster than light. Species that had been enslaved by the Vorthak Empire began declaring independence. Trade routes that had been controlled by imperial forces for centuries reopened under new management. The balance of power that had existed for 3,000 years shifted in a single day. On Earth, Dr. Lee Somin stood in her laboratory reading reports from across the galaxy. Diplomatic messages, trade offers, requests for alliance, and pleas for protection flooded the communication networks. Humanity had gone from unknown species to galactic power in the space of one battle. Dr. Lee, said her assistant, the Earth Council wants to know if we can build more ships like the Indomitable. She smiled and pulled up the blueprints for Project Prometheus Phase 2. The display showed not one ship, but 12. Each one incorporating lessons learned from the first battle, improvements in design, and new weapon systems that would make the original Indomitable look primitive. Tell the Council that construction begins tomorrow, she said, and tell them that next time we will not need to use the sun as a weapon. We are building that capability into the ships themselves. 3 months later, Captain Park Jin-ho stood on the bridge of the rebuilt Indomitable, looking out at a formation of 11 sister ships. Each one was crewed by humans who had volunteered for the most dangerous duty in the galaxy, protecting Earth and her allies from anyone who might threaten them. The galaxy had learned an important lesson about humanity. They were not the strongest species or the largest or the most advanced, but they were the most innovative, the most adaptable, and the most willing to find new solutions to old problems. A message came in from the Zenthari Republic, thanking humanity for their liberation and offering full alliance. Similar messages had arrived from dozens of other species over the past few months. "Area," Jinho said, "how many former Imperial worlds have requested human protection?" 237 star systems have formally requested alliance, Captain. 41 others have submitted preliminary proposals. Jinho nodded. The Vorthak Empire was finished, but the galaxy was still full of dangers. There would always be someone who thought they could conquer others through superior force. They would learn, as the Vorthak had learned, that humans had some new ideas about warfare. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. "Set course for the Rigel system. We have new friends to protect." As the human battle group accelerated toward their next mission, Jinho thought about the message Admiral Kang had broadcast to the galaxy after the battle. "Humanity does not seek conquest. We seek only to be left in peace. But those who threaten us will learn why Earth breeds survivors." The galaxy had learned that lesson well. Humanity was no longer underestimated. Behind them, floating in space near Jupiter, a memorial had been built to honor the crews of the 200 human ships that had died buying time for the Indomitable. It was a simple structure, a metal plate with the names of the fallen and a single message: "They fought so that Earth might live." Below that, in smaller text, was a warning that had already become famous across the galaxy. "Physics does not care about your empire, and neither do we."